Welcome to Oh Brother, a podcast of three brothers trying to figure it all out, with your hosts, Brandon, Collin, and Aaron. On this week's show, tomnoddy attercop. Hello!
Hello! Ahoy!
Ahoy! How are the internets these days?
Well, I don't know. It was having trouble connecting. It was doing very weird things. So, fingers crossed.
Okay. Hopefully it's not as hot, but it is definitely more humid.
Yeah, it actually rained, which was surprising, right? That's new. That's a new feature.
It's a thing that, yeah, I didn't know we still had that module installed.
Yeah. Weather raining. Who knew? Not me.
I will say it was one of those. I went to use our windshield wipers, and I was like, "Where does that switch go? Like, like, what is this?" And I hadn't used them in so long. You know, they got kind of old, like little crusty, little
it's all dried up, kind of. Yeah.
Yep. So, fortunately, it rained hard enough that I got to use them for long enough that they kind of loosened back up, and they were actually working. But that first minute was a little touch and go when I was like, "These are terrible."
They're like, "What? I don't know how to work." I turned them on. It's like a Indiana Jones, like old gears, like grinding. Like,
yes. It was definitely, it was definitely a good time. But yeah, it was good to see the rain. Good to have a little bit of that. But yeah, now the humidity is so bad, and we live in an old home, a very old home, such that inside outside air is just a suggestion, right? It's like whatever. It's hard to keep it, and so our upstairs had like 67-70% humidity today, and I was like, "Oh, this is really gross." So I actually went downstairs into our basement and pulled up our dehumidifier and brought it upstairs.
Oh, wow.
And I have it running just to make it more comfortable, right? Nobody wants to be in, because even at 74 degrees inside, like nobody wants to be in 70% humidity. That's just no fun.
No, they don't ever. So yeah, that's gross. I mean, it rained. Yeah, it's rained twice in this last week. It was surprising. Down here, it didn't even. Last Friday, it was like crazy storm Marino. We were down at Susan's mom's house, and we're just sitting there. We ate dinner. We're sitting there, and then like as soon as it started storming, blam, no power. Right?
Oh no!
Yeah. So her husband has like a generator, so we sat in the dark for a while. We got the lights out, and then he fired it up, and we just kind of hung out for a while. But I guess the gust front from that thing that came through was like so incredible that it just snapped power lines. I heard like 6-8 power poles just like blam, gone.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it was nuts.
That was the same time I did a meet and greet with a client on Saturday. It was after that storm had moved through, and they were telling me about how they were going back and forth with the fence company because they had just had it installed like a week before, and they did it wrong, and all the main posts were like wobbly, and then the storm burst through and
blew
their
it all
tree
over.
just fell on all of it. And,
oh no.
And because it was under warranty for tree damage, but not like inappropriate installation, they got a brand new fence out of the whole thing.
Nice.
And it was installed correctly this time for those listeners. But yeah, they were like, they weren't going to come out and fix it, and they said, we did something to it and blah 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 blah, and then tree.
Yeah, you the owner put the posts in wrong. How dare you? Oh no.
Yeah, it was weird. They were like accusing them of like messing with it or something, if I remember correctly. And I was like, who does that? What? Why?
It doesn't even make sense.
What a weird What kind of owner's like waits for the crew to leave and then runs out and moves the posts back and forth really fast and makes them? I'm like, what? What are people trying to do?
Well, good deal for the homeowners that they got their fence fixed. Anyway, it's terrible that tree had to fall on it because that's annoying. But because that's a whole other mess you got to deal with to clean up and everything. But at least I got a fence that's correct now.
Yes, yeah. And the biggest ordeal was the reason they were trying to rush this fence and get it done because they have a mini potbelly pig in their home who likes to roam, and they were a bit anxious about not having a fence to keep Carrot contained.
Pig corralled in the thing. That's
they
funny.
did in fact need a corral. So they were like very much like, yeah, this is not good. Like we need this fence. It's not even good. And then now they had no fence. So they were a little stressed out about how they're going to keep Pig close at hand.
I mean, this is a valid concern.
Yes, it's
a bit weird when you say it out loud like that. But
right. Like, oh no, I'm worried about my pig roaming.
Yeah, right. Like, what do you mean pig roaming?
Right. Yeah, because they have two little tiny chihuahuas who take like 2 steps into this grass and then turn and run right back inside. Meanwhile, Pig is like, grand adventure. Let's go. Let's put some miles on. And you're like, no,
great.
Hold on. Go. Not over there.
Like it. So I think Pig Roaming. It's a good album name for somebody out there. So if you need a
not about good, but
it's great. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, exactly. It's not good. You're right. It's great. It's fantastic.
I mean, so as I'm still listening to like doom metal, I think that'd be a good like stoner rock name. Pig Roaming.
Pig Roaming.
Yeah. I think it's good. Be a good one. Well, I will now, since fingers are still crossed, but I will now attempt to tell you about my week that I had last week before my internet decided to not cooperate with us.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a taste of the partial adventure. I think so. You got to explore a museum, right?
Yeah. So we went to the Springfield History Museum. All right. So now I will give my summary of the Springfield History Museum. Sorry, I'm a week late. History Museum people. I must give a shout out to Meg. She was the lady that was working there. Nicest lady ever. Right. She's amazing. So good job, Meg. Way to be. Shout out, Meg. Right. But like I mentioned last week, we were gonna go. So we went up there with our friends, right? And we walked into the building and they were like, what kind of ticket do you want? Which is not a question that makes sense. Right. I was like,
right.
What do you mean what kind of ticket? I just want to get into the museum. What does that mean? And then she proceeded to point to the pricing list. So they have a price for like adults and seniors and children and groups and whatever, right? Turns out teachers are free. And as all of us were teachers, we did not have to pay any money to get into the Springfield History Museum.
This is great. I
thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Susan thought it was even better because before we left, she was like, you can buy lunch and I'll pay for the museum visit.
Oh. Huzzah!
So she got away with that one, let me tell you.
Wow.
But in talking to Meg.
Well played, Susan.
Yeah, I think she knew. I think she sneaked that one over on me. But, in talking to Meg, she was like, yeah, it's kind of weird because, like, we have all this museum with all this cool stuff, but people that live in Springfield don't think they need to go to the Springfield Museum.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you
Why
know,
go?
yeah. I mean, so that's wrong. That's a wrong thing to say. Because it's really cool, man. So like, excuse me. Uh, so we go inside. The first floor is all like Native American stuff, right? So they have this big section of. That's not real. This part's not like super big, but it's like a section about like the Native Americans that lived in around the Springfield area, like pre, colonial contact and whatever.
Sure.
So that's pretty cool. It's got like, like the Kickapoo, right? And like the Osage and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a bunch of really cool displays there. And then as you go up the floors, you just kind of sort of go forward in time, right?
Oh, that's cool.
So it's really kind of neat. um, you go up to the next floor, and it's like very early Springfield, like early 1800s stuff, like when it was founded. So it's got a bunch of stuff about like just like a bunch of random facts about Springfield in there. It's really neat. They have this like streetcar thing, and you can go inside and you can like quote drive it like through time, and you can like stop at time periods, and it will like play a little video about that part of Springfield history.
What?
Yeah, it's cool. So like you can sort of do that and go in there and do all that stuff and talk about it. And it's so you can get what you want out of that, because like you could sit in that thing for hundreds of hours probably, or just like pick a couple spots and move on. But that's really cool. You can do a lot of stuff in there. That is where you can learn about the Great Springfield Cobra Scare. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's that. Oh, okay. Wow.
Familiar with the Great Springfield Cobra Scare of the 1950s?
Yeah, just that we had one, and like very vaguely, yes. When you said that, my brain was like, "Well, wow, that was okay." What for those who us who don't really remember what that was about? What happened with the Great Cobra Scare?
Well, now that I have gone through here, I can't find my thing on my phone anymore. But like, yeah, like 11 Indian cobras were discovered just roaming about in people's yards in like 1956 or something. 11 of them. Most of them were killed by garden hose, as would be the response. There are some interesting newspaper pictures of like Springfield cop like holding this cobra, and it's like 5 feet long. It's dead. Obviously, it's dead, right? But yeah. So the story is there was this like pet shop guy who was kind of like shady and was probably selling animals that he was not supposed to be having, right? And everybody blamed him for the Cobra release forever, right? And he denied it like his whole life. He denied the whole thing. Well, in the 80s, a guy came forward after being reassured by attorney that he could not be found at fault for anything. And he claimed responsibility for letting the cobras loose, right? So what happened? What happened was he bought a fish. He was like 14 or 11 to 14, something in there. He bought a fish from this guy, right? Like just a normal goldfish. And he took it home and it died. And so the next day, he went back to the store and the guy gave him all kinds of grief. The guy was like super hateful to him. Was like, whatever, kid, sucks to suck, right? And so the kid was mad. So as he was leaving, he saw a box marked snakes and he just kicked it open and then ran away. Turns out the snakes were cobra.
Oh my gosh.
So yes, the pet shop owner was in fact in possession of many things that he was not supposed to have, but he did not let the snakes go.
That's crazy. I didn't know about that part
The kid, right? Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. He didn't tell anybody until like the mid 80s. It was him. Then it happened like 1956. He was like,
Well,
nope,
sure. I mean, as a
not telling
kid,
anybody.
that's terrifying to think of
Yeah,
that. Of
right?
like, of course, I would hide in shame because of that. Like, just like you did that thing, and then
Mhm.
it's like as a kid, one of your worst nightmares of you causing like something so big coming. It's like what a lot of the movies that we talk about, like the kids involved in something like way bigger, right, than than themselves. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, like it's it's a great example of that.
Yeah, like in way over your head all of a sudden, and now you're like, like, there's what do you do, right? You're just like terrified. So the thing I read said that at urging from a friend. So I think eventually he told probably like his friends or family, but like he finally went public with the admission in the 80s, right?
Mm.
So anyway, this floor also has like a big giant train that you can go sit in, right? And play this like really sweet Oregon Trail light game of like driving old vehicles from St. Louis to Springfield, right? It's kind of fun. I sat in there for a little bit, did that. Just kind of like early Springfield history, like just really random stuff, really cool stuff, like about how before the zoo was built, they like kept animals in certain city parks in Springfield. It's like goats just like hanging out in parks randomly. Hopefully no cobras, right? But you know. Anyway, you go up the next floor and then you're in like Civil War era Springfield.
Hmm.
Right. So like the Battle of Springfield, it's got some like Wilson's Creaky stuff. You know, it's got like some it's got a bunch of like artifacts from the time, bunch of really cool stuff. Like that. Oh, I forgot to mention that as you're going through this museum, at the front desk you can get like little scavenger hunt pages. Right. So that's fun. They have like different levels of like scavenger hunt, like what as you're going through museum. One of them's like pictures, like can you find this thing, like an I Spy thing,
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
And then there's two levels of like questions. So it's like there's like a normal one, and then there's like a harder version of like what year did this happen, and then you have to find in the exhibit, right? But there's like two levels of questions. There's one that's like normal, and there's one that's like harder.
We have to like really pay attention.
Yeah, you really gotta.
You gotta read the
find,
plaques. You gotta
it involves a very large amount of scavenging. Right?
Okay,
I will tell you that.
So probably not for me.
Well, I mean, I did it, but it's like real random stuff, right? Like real random. Like it took me a long time to find one of them. So I was like, I have no idea what this is, and my friend was like, "It's right there." Like, oh, of course, right in front of me, where I wasn't looking. So it's like it's hidden. Some of the stuff is hidden very well, and you have to like find it. Like on Susan's paper, it was the thing about the Cobra scare. So that finding it in the trolley was like we had to ask somebody, like, where is this at? I don't understand where it's hiding.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so Civil War area, Springfield, right? You go around the corner, and then there's a whole like Wild Bill Hickok display thing.
What?
Right. Now, this is a very important Springfield, Missouri history, ladies and gentlemen, because Wild Bill Hickok involved in one of the very first gunfights in the old Western history on the square in Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that this exhibit looks, it's on the side of the building that looks out over the square. So you can like read about this and then turn around and look out the window and see it. And they have like little diagrams. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty sweet, right? They have little diagrams like by the window showing like where things were at the time.
You know, I think really... they have something like that for the JFK for the Kennedy down in Dallas.
They do, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, that's really cool.
Yeah. But yeah, it's right there. and there's a whole thing kind of about him and just sort of his life, which is really insane, right, and weird. And then they have like a shooting arcade game, because why not? Where you can like shoot a target in a thing, right? It's very cool.
Yeah, might as well. You're in the mood.
Might as well, right? And then the last part is like Route 66 stuff, right? Which is like, that basically kicked off in Springfield, that whole thing. So there's the last little section is all Route 66 related. There's a bunch of stuff in there. I did not know that naming Route 66 was such a fiasco, right?
Oh.
Lots of weird goings on. Like they were gonna call it like Route 60, but it like started in Springfield and then went to Los Angeles. But then some senator from Kentucky was like really upset because like his state didn't have any interstates in it, and he really wanted one, and it was, it's not fair to Kentucky, and this isn't really even a transcontinental highway because it only goes halfway across the country, and I'm going to cry about it. So, yeah. Then there was a bunch of that, and then the guy from Springfield, whose name I can't remember now, but they basically were in a bunch of meetings about naming the road, and realized that 66 hadn't been used yet, and we're like, that sounds cool. Let's call it that. Boom.
That's what it is. Rad. What?
Yeah. Because they were like, oh, it could be 62. And they're like, no, that's lame. And like, I don't want to do blah, blah, blah. Like, it was a whole thing. So they decided that 66 was unused anywhere and sounded neat. I think the little video I watched was like, the guy was like, yeah, it's got a good ring to it. And then the rest, as they say, is history. So, yeah. But it was really cool. We spent a lot of time in there looking at all the stuff. There's really cool exhibits, lots of like hands-on-y things and lots of like little videos you can watch, interactive stuff that'll like, there are like a bunch of screens everywhere, but they only play if you like walk up and touch them, So they're not just always like blaring at you and stuff. And then there's a couple big ones that are on the wall that play on a loop, here and there, but it's really neat. It's a really cool place. So I enjoyed it. It was really fun. Lots of neat stuff in there. Lots of interesting little facts about Springfield, right? Which is cool. So, and it's like right on the square too. So it's really neat. It's like right there, right on the north end of the square, right by Boonville or whatever. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Helps set the ambiance of that for sure.
Yeah. That's really cool. Right downtown. Lots of stuff. Really modern, really up to date. And Meg is amazing. So there you go. There you go.
Well, cool. And so you went with a small group of friends, or
right? Some teacher friends, right? We just decided to go up there, check it out, and yeah, spent a couple hours in the museum looking at stuff, hanging out, having a good time. So yeah,
very cool. That's great. Well, so out of the number of I don't know trolley cars, how would you rank it?
Let's see. I would definitely give it a solid 5 out of 5 mule pulled trolley cars. That's what I would
love it.
Yeah. Fun fact: Springfield's earliest trolley cars pulled by mules. Boom.
I figured there was a tie in there.
It was on the display. There you go.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool like little random stuff that you like that I didn't know. Like I guess right after the Civil War, there was a huge monument to General Lyon, like right in the middle of the square. Right, General Lyon, for those of you who don't know, has the unfortunate distinction of being the first Union general to die in the Civil War. At Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. So he died in the Battle of Wilson's Creek. I mean, whoopsie daisy.
It's a recognition, right? It's
yeah. And so they basically there's this big monument, big marble column thing that they put right in the middle of the Springfield Square, right? Later on, when they were running trolley cars, so they ran trolleys down through there, right? So there was trolley line that went from Boonville down south there, and they measured so that the trolley lines would not hit the monument. They forgot to think about the trolley itself being too wide. So they were like,
As
oh,
it happens,
yeah, the tracks fit. But then once you put a trolley car on there, it wouldn't really work.
It's
so
like
good.
whenever I measured for our refrigerator and I forgot about the depth with doors, right? And it was like, no, like the body fits, but with
not
doors,
yeah,
not so much.
Yeah. So they pulled it out, and it's now in the cemetery. That's the big national cemetery, whatever the big national cemetery over on like Glenstone or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I think that's where it's at. and in this display, they had a piece of the original fence that was around the monument. Yeah, like whenever they moved it, somebody bought it for their garden, and it was like in their house. And Susan asked the lady about it, and they don't really know exactly where it came from because they got it a long time ago, so there was no good clear record of provenance here. But like somebody bought the fence and like had it in their house in Springfield, like in their garden fence. That was it. It's this big wrought iron, 1860s wrought iron fence, right?
Yeah, that's so crazy.
And then they, I guess the owners of the house knew where it came from because whenever I don't know, somebody bought it, blah blah blah, changed hands, and then somebody donated it to the museum, so they have it up in the Civil War thing. Like there's like a whole wall about the monument, and then like attached to the wall right in front is the fence. It's really cool. Like, it's really neat. There's like little random stuff like that. It's like, whoa, that's really cool. Well, yeah, those are just like little neat stuff all over.
Well, it's crazy to think about how many of those little quote unquote little piece. I mean, it's an inconsequential piece of history, right? It's the fence, but it's the fence, right? And how many of those pieces are in attics or in people's gardens or in woodsheds or in basements or were used as part of a redecorating scheme of their. Like I think about that. The numbers. If you go into in the town where we live, if you go and go into a lot of the antique shops, I've never seen this before, and I think it's just this place. But when people go in, they remodel an old home, a historic home, or they go to tear it down, they pull all of the crown molding out and like the staircase banisters out, and they'll resell that to these shops. And so you can go in and buy crown molding from a home that was built like in the 1850s and such, which is like how many of these other like historic homes from the town have been pilfered and torn apart and now are just scattered now back throughout the community.
Why would you take out the banister? That seems important to me. I feel like
well, because they're gonna, they come in, they go, oh, I don't want this old banister. We want a more modern one or whatever. So they're gonna put in something instead of
the old one. Come on, you do. It's fine.
Oh, I want the old one. So I mean, I'm the person that's coming into these shops going, oh, look at this crown molding. Oh, look at this. Oh, so I mean, I'm part of the problem, but that's beside the point.
Nah, it's fine.
It's
not a problem at all. It's all good. But yeah, it's just like there's, whenever you at any museum, right, you kind of have that like you're looking at this like random thing and you're like, I wonder how that ended up here, right? Like, what was the journey of this random thing to get here, right? Whether it's the Civil War like little doctor bag thing or like the drummer boy's drum thing, right? The like all kinds of like crazy stuff, or even just like the Route 66 thing. Like they have some of the old like the little drive-in speakers, like where did that, what is this?
Yeah.
Also, I learned that we were sitting there reading the Route 66 timeline thing. It's this huge wall that goes through the middle of the room that they have all the stuff. And we were reading about this thing, and it was talking about like people that became famous that performed in Springfield, right? People like Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley performed at the Shrine Mosque. I was like, whoa,
What?
hold on. What?
Back that up with just what quick moment.
Like, what do you mean?
Oh. Well, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah. And I guess there's there was this kid, I don't remember his name, but there's a kid who lived in Springfield, and like he really wanted to go see Elvis. He was like he'd been teaching himself how to play guitar and had a bunch of guitar lessons, right? And like he didn't think Elvis played the guitar particularly well, right? Because Elvis kind of like just like smacked it,
Sure.
and he was like, "That's not cool." Kid's like 12, and he really wanted to go see Elvis, but his mom and dad wouldn't buy him a ticket, so they went to the lake, and he sneaked out on his bicycle,
What?
went to the Shrine Mosque, got in somehow, managed to get backstage and talk with Elvis, and like showed him some stuff on the guitar. And Elvis's quote is being like, "What in the? All right, that's good, yeah." And fast forward a few years, Elvis hires this kid to be in his band, and he played in the band for like ever.
Whoa. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah. So there's like all kinds of like really crazy stuff like that you're like, I didn't have any idea about this, right? I didn't
Yeah.
know about like the Ozarks Jubilee, and that it was like actually a huge thing, like the new hotness whenever TV was on. Like there was this
Hmm.
whole thing, like they had those like crazy TV variety shows. There's
Yeah.
like country and western music and all kinds of
Oh
stuff all over
yeah.
the place. Like the Ozarks Jubilee was like where it's at, right? Like I didn't,
Yeah. And,
I
and
didn't know
growing
this.
up and hearing that and kind of seeing, kind of how it's transformed into Branson and so the shows they put on there, you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever, it's a thing. But
Yeah, but like I didn't really realize the impact and like how big a deal it was.
huh.
So you're like reading this thing, and like watching this little video, like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Yeah, yeah, it was pretty neat. There was a lot of really cool stuff in there. So if you're
What
in the
was
area, listeners,
yeah,
go
I mean
see the Springfield Museum.
yeah, I mean you what was I mean it sounds like there's a lot of both known and little known facts. I mean, did you have one that was particularly surprising to you?
I mean, other than the Springfield Cobra scare,
Yeah,
because
I
that's
mean,
pretty
obvi-
surprising.
obviously.
Um,
Yeah, that's assumed. Okay, so set
that's
that
a
to the
big
side.
one. I don't
What's
know.
your
There's
second
just
most surprising?
second most. Okay, there you go. Like I don't know. You don't really think about like there's just a lot of like big, like that turned out to be like kind of important things that happened at Springfield, right?
Hmm.
And that's like a weird thing to think about because it doesn't really just seem like a particularly important place in the world, right? But like there's a lot, like especially around the Civil War and like about a bunch of weird stuff like that. There's like a lot of really crazy stuff that happened there. One of the surprising things that I actually did not know was that Missouri outlawed slavery like 2 weeks before the federal government. So I didn't know that.
Did not know that either.
There you go. So they
Huh.
made it. They made it. They banned slavery 2 weeks before the constitutional amendment or the federal government decided slavery was no good.
Well, how
So
about that?
that was surprising, right?
Yeah.
That was surprising, especially given the current state of Missouri politics. Right, they're kind of behind the times on everything else. So it's good to know that we were on the front foot on that one.
E- ah. Ah.
And just like a bunch of people like that you've heard the names before, like
Yeah.
John Campbell, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's got a whole street named after him and stuff. But like you really think about it too much. Like he was really a big deal. Like his wife did a whole lot of work on a lot of like humanitarian projects, stuff like that. I forgot that Pythian Castle used to be a hospital.
Yeah. Okay.
It was like a huge hospital during like the wartime, like World War II time. Like it was like a really big, important
Mm-hmm.
medical hospital thing because it was so close to the old airport that's down there, downtown over there, over on
Yeah.
was that division or whatever.
Yes. That vision.
And they could that was just big enough to land like certain military planes, so they would actually it was like a big time army hospital,
Oh, that's
right?
crazy.
Yeah. And so like it was like the O'Reilly the hospital. Like oh okay. I forgot about that part of that right? Like, oh, okay. So that was another really cool thing. Where it's like, oh, and like there was a the one of the floors had like a exhibit that's like not all the time there. It was like it's about like wartime uniforms and camouflage stuff, and they had just like a bunch of local things in there. Some of them you look at like uniforms from other countries and you go, that's not camouflage. I don't know who you're fooling here, but
Wait a
they had
minute.
they had a bunch of stuff like that. And so there was this guy in Springfield, and like he couldn't. And this is World War II time. Like he was ineligible to serve. Like he couldn't sign up. I think a medical condition. Like he couldn't sign up, and so he was like a business owner, and so he decided that he was just going to send stuff to the soldiers, like letters and like care packages and like all kinds of stuff like that. And so he like his company had like this big dedicated campaign of like writing to the soldiers and like doing all that stuff. So they had a bunch of the letters that he either sent or like they sent back to him, right? Kind of in this cabinet, this display thing. That was really neat too, just seeing how like, little, that was such a big important thing to some of those people, right? They just had that. It was very touching, just that whole thing right there. So that was really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, again, those pieces of history that didn't have to be saved, right? But somebody did, and they found a place now.
Yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, it was fun. It was a fun time.
Cool. That's nice. Well, good. I'm glad. I again haven't not ever been, so it is on my list, especially to take the kids. So that's gonna be fun.
I think there's some parts that they would really think is cool, right? Like they can definitely do the like I Spy thing, right?
Oh, they love that.
It's like a picture, and you had to like check the box that you found in the thing. And there's some cool stuff.
I'm back.
All right.
See, this is a good lesson. Pay attention, people. When you tell somebody 3/4 cup, you do need to follow up or be okay with people having concerns when you show up, and cup is relative. Because
oh dear.
Because what they really mean is 3/4 of the item in the food container. Fill that 3/4 way. It's not a measuring cup. It's not even a drinking cup. It's like a big old scoop thingamabob. And so I had a staff member that was a bit confused because they're like, "This is not a cup," and I was like, "Describe it to me." They were like, "Well, it's more like a big, like, I guess I'd call it a scoop thing." I was like, they just want 3/4 of that filled. They were like, okay.
3/4 of the included vessel.
Yes, exactly. Is really what it should have said. But this is okay. This is why
it's fine.
Yes. This is why we ask these questions.
True.
Yes. So yeah, we had somebody say they were filling out our paperwork and they were like, I think you would be busier if you didn't have people fill out so much information, because there's a lot of documents here that you're having me sign. I feel like you would it would be better if you didn't have that. And I was like, Well, let me tell you why we do. Because things go poorly, right? And we
that's
need we
a
need
weird stance on that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I was like, look, yeah, I need to know where your pets are or are not allowed. I do need to know where your water shut off valve is and where your electrical box is. Like, I need to know these things. I know you don't think so. I know you think it's ridiculous, but like, trust me, like, we're going to have to, we need this information. So
on the off chance that it's very important, where is it though? Like,
yeah, exactly. Just humor me. And I understand some of our questions, it's like they're redundant and we have to ask them for each pet. It's like, so if you have 5 pets and you have to say, are they allowed on the couch? But see, here's the thing. In our experience, we have people who train their pets differently. Some pets are allowed on couches, some are not. Like a lot of people allow cats on couches, but not dogs. Some people allow certain dogs on couches, but not other dogs. And then we ask the vet information for each animal. And you think, what, Collin, why would you do that? Well, because we have clients who have like 6 animals and they take them to 4 different vets. Just because. Like, that's just how they run their life. So we need to know, where do we take this animal versus this animal versus this animal? Like, and people who have one pet with this. So we do our best to try and keep it as streamlined as possible, but we do also have to be flexible enough to cover these weird edge cases that come up from time to time. So
yeah, I could see like if you had a dog and a cat, right? Like maybe there's like a cat specialist vet that you want to go to, right? Like that person is like a cat like expert and they have like, whatever. And like maybe the dog just needs to go to somebody, I don't know, depending on like their medical conditions or whatever, who knows, right?
Right. Or here's actually the most common thing. Husband, sorry, 2 people dating.
That's true, right?
Guy has cat. Lady has dog. They get married. Now they want us to care for their pets, and they just don't bother bringing them to the different vets. Like, they don't bring them over. They just
keep them at the established.
Exactly, because they're established. Right. That is by far the most common thing that we see. Actually, people dating and people get newly married, and now they need care for their pets, and this is just where they've been established. And I get it. It's annoying. Or like, you have 3 cats. I'm going to ask you, do they get anxious, right? And which one gets anxious, and then what does that look like? So that we can know if we walk in and we say, oh, the orange one's acting really freaked out. Let me look at my notes. Oh, that's normal. Okay, I'm cool.
Because like cat anxious, you have 2 varieties, right? You'll never see this cat ever, or it's attacking you, right?
Yes. That's
kind of important information to have about a cat, right? Like,
exactly. But here's the thing. I don't blame people because they don't, it's their cat, right? What do you mean? This is just how they are. I'm like, yes, this is why I'm asking you this question. Because I don't know.
I'm going to see 9 cats today. So.
I am. Or
I know.
Your cat's going to be seen by 5 different people. Okay, let's just be
also true.
So help me, help you. So instead of this person sitting down and filling out the form by themselves, I just called them and I said, "Hi, I have a few questions for you." And yes, they just so happen to be the exact same ones that are on my form. But here we go. Tell me about their anxiety.
You'll never know. Everything's fine.
Shh, it's okay. Oh my gosh. But so we survived it's finally to the point where like the 4th of July, this is crazy. Like, we're mid-July, late July right now. 4th of July travel has finally died down.
It's so weird to me.
We're kind of back to normal. And then all of a sudden, we our 2 service areas. We have one with 21,000 people in it. We have another with 190,000 people or whatever. I don't know the population. It's not relevant. One's
It's big.
like literally, it's almost 10 times the size.
The other one.
Of the other one. And man, that 21,000 population town, I don't know. It's insane. Like we are booked to the max all on the most random of weekends and in the middle of weeks. Like it's like, oh yeah, 7 of our clients just want to travel this weekend. Have fun. And you're like, oh my gosh, like how?
Where are you going? Why?
Exactly. Like where are you going? Well, and then we found out that sometimes we have several clients who all travel together, and they're like, oh, let's go to Banff, or let's go to Colorado, or let's go to such and such for the weekend or for a getaway. Or they've all been, here's the other thing, like a lot of them they grew up in the town and they're all best friends, and so they take vacations together, or they'll go celebrate 60th birthday parties together or that kind of stuff. So that's but they're all in each other's, and they're all in their kids' weddings, and that, so they're running the same groups. But then there are times where I'm like, look, I know you two don't know each other, but like, why are all 7 of you traveling this weekend? Like I'm very confused, but okay. So it continues to just, I don't know. It's a weird market. It's a weird market. So there you go. You aspiring pet sitters out there, if you're like, oh, I'm in a small town, I'm in a rural area, trust me, you get connected with the right people. Well, seriously, like tomorrow. So we talk to a lot of people who run solo businesses, and they don't, they will say the maximum number of visits I will do is 14 visits a day, or 16 if I'm really pushing it. Like that's where people find their sweet spots. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow is so today and tomorrow, one of my staff members in that town, she had 12. Just I'm like,
crazy.
What? And there were more visits than that, because there were 6 visits in the evening that she doesn't do. She just works mornings and afternoons. And she had 12. It was like, well, where did that come from?
Good gravy.
So anyway, all that to say, it's been crazy. But it's been good. Hiring is finally, we learned our lesson. So we've got a new hire in. He's doing fantastic. He's a younger guy, and just what he wants to do. He just wants to do this. He likes being active. He likes the fast-paced nature of it, which I'm like, great, because I've had people who don't like that. So welcome. And he's doing really good job. So that's, but what happened is so from start to finish, this took us like almost 3.5 months to fill this position. 3.5 months to fill it. Yeah. And it was the time of the year, right? Where it was kind of like, it was just after summer had started. So everyone pretty much had their quote unquote summer jobs. No one was looking. It's also a weird thing to try and fill of only morning positions. And there aren't a lot of morning people out there, basically is what I'm finding. So trying to find those people who are like, yeah, I'd like getting up at 5 a.m. to start work at 6, so I can just work until noon and then be done for the day. Like that's what I want to do with my life. Those people are rare. And so that just took a while to get that. And what we had done, unfortunately, is we were kind of felt like we were in a good place with hiring and everything. So we had kind of shut off the hiring valves to our different places. So we didn't have a good influx of people. And once you post a job posting, it takes a while for that to kind of matriculate through all the systems and surface to other people and work through the algorithms as it becomes engaged with. So we had just turned that tap off, and then it took a while for it to get ramped up before we even started getting applicants. And then so with the time of year, with us not staying on top of it, really bit us. So I still don't know really how to manage that well. I have no positions to fill, but we have 3 different job postings out there. I don't know really how to manage that, but that's what everyone says to do. We're just like, no, keep them open. Never take them down. Never say you're not hiring. Always be hiring. And I'm like, okay, I understand. I get it. Yeah, because I didn't do that the last time and tired. Oh. But yeah, and then randomly through so this whole thing of it was crazy because randomly on Instagram, Megan got a message and it was a guy and he was like, hey, we really like all of your posts and what you post in these Facebook groups. We'd love to have you on TV to talk to you about your business. And we were like, sorry, what? What? Like literally sliding into our DMs to say hi. And we looked into it and we're like, yeah, this is the co-host of this basically local daytime talk show. And on a network, and we're like, well, oh, okay. So we responded and we had been pitched this once before by some guy, and what he was asking was for us to pay for the privilege to be on a show, and was like, hey, we like what you do, would you be interested? And we were like, yeah. And he was like, okay, here's our price sheet. And
I'm no longer interested.
Yeah, and we were like, JK, actually, you know what? Turns out I didn't want to do that. And we were like, so what's the cost? And he was like, oh no, this is free. Like we just want to talk to you about your business. And we were like, oh, okay. So he's like, what's a good email? We emailed, and then he was just like, yeah, show up at this day, this time. Here's the gate code. See you soon. And and that was pretty much it. Like there was no real prep work or like what to expect or how it functioned or anything like that. So we just showed up at the TV and sat awkwardly in the green room with a musician from Branson waiting for him to go on his segment. And then
nice.
Yeah. And so just went on air and chatted and for 4 minutes and 13 seconds or whatever it was. And it was kind of cool. The kids got to be in the studio with us. So they got to sit against the wall. So they were kind of looking at the backs of the camera operators that were then in front of us. Yeah, it was pretty cool. They said they really liked it. Noah took a stuffed animal in, and that stuffed animal did not make it back out. And so I come to find out one of the camera operators was cleaning up the set and found the stuffed animal. And reportedly, as the co-host who I spoke to today about this said, call the parents. The kid left a stuffed animal.
Good looking out, man. Good looking out.
They did, seriously. And the co-host ran over, took a picture, messaged us on Instagram, and was like, oh my gosh, like, found this. Is this your kids? And we were like, yes, we'll come by and get it. And he was like, no worries. And we're, it's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry that you now have the stuffed animal. And like, I feel kind of bad that's on your desk and whatever. And he was like, no, it's fine. And I showed up today. And he said, oh, come by after 4. And I was like, okay, I'll be there because that's whenever the segment ends. So I show up a little bit before, and the guy, the front desk clerk was looking at me, and I was like, hi. Because, she was looking at her pamphlet, like her clipboard, basically. And it's because she was looking at that. And I know the face of like, I wasn't expecting any people to come by.
Oh, yeah. Like there's nobody else on the list.
Right. Like, why are you standing in front of me, good sir? And I said, hi, my name's Collin. My wife and I were here for a segment that filmed on earlier in the week. And my kid left a stuffed animal, and he left it here. And when I said that, her eyes got big and she was like, you're missing a stuffed animal? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, do you know where it was? And I was like, well, I think it's in the back. And she like grabbed her keys and ran around from the desk and was like, we're going to go find this animal. And I didn't even say like the co-host has it. And like, she was getting ready to take me back on set to like scour for the stuffed animal.
Like, no, I just need to talk to so-and-so. Let me have it.
That's what I said. I was like, oh, no. I think the host, has it. And she was like, oh, okay. He's around this corner. I know where he is. I was like jogging through the labyrinth of malls to get there. It's like calling his name and was like,
Oh my God.
I got a guy here for stuff.
I got the stuffed animal guy.
like everyone took this very seriously.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's crazy.
I am very thankful for everybody at the station who really weren't inconvenienced. I mean, it wasn't inconvenience, but like they knew that like, no, this is serious. Like, kid has lost a stuffed animal. Like, oh my gosh. And so it was just, it was nice. I felt good about it.
Well, that's good. TV station people way to be on the
So, yes, it was all resolved, and we are all together and well today.
Was the only question I have is was Noah as upset as the desk lady?
Oh,
because he's like so chill about almost everything. So, like,
he actually was. He was actually pretty sad and upset by this. So yes, it was
okay. Good.
It matched. All right.
Good. I'm glad. That's good. That's important.
Yes. So yeah, that's about all. I mean, yeah, that's been our chaotic week so far.
Sounds very chaotic.
But so. We are planning a train trip to Kansas City. The time is upon us. We're planning this. We will go from our city, because I have never been in a city that has a train station. This is weird to people all over the globe, and
that's
even
true.
Most parts
of our European listeners are laughing at you right now.
Yes.
Like,
I've never, and it's 3 minutes from my house. So it's like
walking distance.
I can't not go to this. Like,
don't even have to drive.
And so we have to. And so we're going to go into Kansas City, and we're going to go to Legoland, because that is in the Discovery area, which is right across the street from the train station, which is where also our hotel will be. So it'll just be wonderful. We don't have to drive anywhere once we get there. We're just going to explore like Union Station, surrounding area. And
nice.
I'm very excited.
That place is awesome.
Very excited about this. Spend a couple days over there and then take the train back home. So,
and it's Union Station has, right? That's the big giant building, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I was making sure I was thinking of the same place. In the one of the rooms is just like a model train thing, and it's just like it's like a donation, right, to get in. He's like, whatever, and it's like this huge room of like a bazillion model trains everywhere. At least it was there a couple years ago when we were there. Okay, so because I remember thinking at the time, Susan and I were like, oh yeah, Noah needs to be in this room right now. So that would check out and see if it's still there, because there was like a really huge, big, just like with like dioramas and like all kinds of crazy stuff back there. With like, you know how they like set it up, and it's got like all the stuff, and it's got like several different sizes, gauges. I don't know how to speak model train scales. There we go. Scales, maybe. Boom. In certain displays, so it's got like all kinds of different stuff back there. So it was really cool. I remember it being really neat over there, and so and I, we're going over for several days, and we're not geographically, we're hardly traveling. Like once we arrive, like we're not going very far, but I'm already worried about being able to fit like all these things in. Yeah,
because like there's a lot to do.
And will the children have the stamina to do them, or they'll be like, yeah, we're done walking for a little bit while here, we're gonna just
I mean, it definitely is a worry, and not and trying to make sure we don't overload our schedule will really be a tough thing, because it will also be very easy to do. And with going to places like museums or these activity places, it's like, how long does it really take right, to go through, and that's hard to judge. And I personally don't like getting halfway through a place, then being like, okay, and now we're running, right?
Yeah, that's happened to us before, right? That's what that's what happened to us when we were at Union Station, because we went up to see that traveling Holocaust display thing.
Right. Yeah.
And we were like just over halfway done, and they were like, we are closing in 45 minutes. We're like, oh no. That's not really going to work for us. So that's bad news.
Yeah, this is what I don't want to have happen, but it's like, how do you can't really stop it in a lot of instances. So anyway,
yeah, it's hard. Museums are hard, specifically if you want to look like that, because it's like really difficult to try to like really get a lot out of it if you're going kind of fast, right? That's what happened to us when we were in DC with the Museum of Natural History, right? Because we had like just a couple hours, and that's not enough time for so we were really like picking and choosing and like, let's go over here. And I'm just like, I was like, I have to go look at the rocks. And Susan was like, bye. I can't be in the Museum of Natural History and not go to the geology wing. As a geology teacher, that seems illegal. So I went.
Yes. Yeah.
She looked at some of the other stuff, and there was one where we're like, okay, we don't really care about this, so we're going to walk through this exhibit to get to this other one that we want to see. So we were just like walking by, like, yep, okay, got it. Anyway, here's what we wanted to see. Difficult choices were made. So
yes,
I understand your pain.
So we so that we're very, very excited about that coming up. And that'll be here pretty soon. Because then we get kind of crazy again. So, that's just, and while it's kind of weird, but like while Megan and I aren't out doing pet visits normally, like when I'm not covering for normally, like, well, we're not doing that. So you're like, oh, like, what's the day hold? It's like, well, we do. It's very chaotic most days.
All
like
kinds of crazy managerial things. I can imagine.
Phone calls at all hours of the day. Right? Come in. Hoot, like, so that's just something where it's like, it's hard to truly take a step away and relax.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right. Like that's what we're hoping to be able to do coming up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, yeah, that's what's going on.
Very nice. Well, shall we?
Yes. We shall. Because last we left our intrepid adventurers, we were standing outside of a dark, dingy forest.
We were indeed. Right. We were indeed. These chapters, once again, sort of odd, right? But now, for the first time, we are without Gandalf. Dun dun dun. Which, a wizard would be a handy thing to have in a villainously enchanted forest. But Gandalf is off doing other things that you'll have to read about in appendices to find out.
Yes.
To find out exactly what he was doing. Tolkien knew later. He wrote it down later.
Right.
So Gandalf
backfilled.
Is off doing other things, right? And now we get some problems, right? We kind of start to go downhill in a hurry. Now, I promised you a bit of lore explanation.
Yes.
Right? So Now, I don't know if this was in Gandalf's mind, or not Gandalf's, in Tolkien's mind
One and the
at
same
the
sometimes.
time, right? True, it is one and the same, right? At the time, right? But Gandalf, right? Like his whole mission, the whole reason that he is in Middle Earth is to fight against the great evil, right? That's his task. He was appointed by the gods to do this, right? The Valar, excuse me, to do this, right? That's what he's there for. So he and the other wizards are not normally supposed to oppose evil directly, right? They're not like on the front lines fighting evil, right? Gandalf does that in the Lord of the Rings at the end, but there's a whole reason for that anyway. Um, so he is like part of his whole task is to inspire others, right? That's his thing, right? He kind of has this aura about him that is like inspiring and like hopeful, right? He instills that in people. Okay. Gandalf, also the wearer of a ring of power. Okay. So Gandalf wears one of the elven rings of power that were made without the influence of that pesky Sauron fellow, right? They were made just by Celebrimbor alone, the great smith of the elves, right? So they're kind of outside the influence of the One Ring, right? They don't really have as much sway, like that. And so his particular ring also, right? This is what helps him do his fiery stuff. Gandalf is a fire wizard. That's why he blows smoke rings all the time too, because like that's just kind of his like element thing, right? He does that all the time because he can control fire and stuff. But the ring also gives him kind of amplifies his innate power, right? So like he is a beacon of hope to others, which is why they do this really good job in the movies, right? When he's not there, like it's dire.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yeah.
when he's not around, it's like so bad. It's horrible, right? Like Helm's Deep, right? Like it's so the despair is creeping in and it's just blah. And then he shows up, boom, like he brings with this like force with him. So there is a bit of this lore reason why, like when Gandalf is not around, like things kind of go bad and people get like real down because he is like boosting them along as they go, right? So there's a little nerdy look into what's going on here in the Tolkien legendarium behind the scenes.
Yes.
Have one more of those later, but
okay.
But well, now we see that.
Yes.
We don't have that quite yet, but they are alone.
Yes, and everyone in the party has the sense of loss for not having Gandalf around. All right, and I think probably for good reason. For more than not, but yes, there's a gloom about the party.
Yes, indeed. Oops, that is not the right chapter to look at. Okay, now it's like that doesn't. Okay, sorry.
Chapter 8.
If you open your book to the right page, it generally helps. All right. Yeah, I was on. I opened it to where my bookmark is, not to where, like, So got it.
Okay.
So yes, it starts off okay though, right? We're kind of worried about this whole thing because it's been built up. It's not great, right? They were sick for the sight of the sun. It's very dark. It's very cramped. There is an interesting comparison here to the Goblin tunnels, which I thought was kind of interesting, right? Like you would think forest, bigger, blah, but it's like so imposing that it reminds Bilbo and the the dwarves of the goblin tunnels about how oppressive it is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not a pleasant forest. This is not a happy fun forest like we had earlier. Right. This is
No.
is not a good place.
Yeah, and it gets worse as they go along, right? And this is where yet again the power of the his written word and descriptive nature, just like I love it. He says, occasionally a slender beam of sun that had the luck to slip in through some opening in the leaves far above, and still more luck in not being caught in the tangled boughs and matted twigs beneath, stabbed down thin and bright before them. But this was seldom, and it soon ceased together. Yeah. And it's like, oh,
yeah, it's pretty
gosh,
good, right? It's pretty good description.
Yes, it just and having been in woods and hiked through woods, like you can just sometimes you look out and you can see the beams of light coming through and how it's like, oh, that dimly lit. Anyway, it just was oh yes, good stuff.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's pretty, but this is heavily implied. No,
right.
This is not. Yeah, this is not a good.
Not good. Yes.
Right, like beams of sunlight dappling through the leaves. This is not that. Okay, this is not like a pleasant day. No. Badness. And it gets worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's not going well, right? It's going poorly. But then they end up at a river, right? And they've been warned, do not go in the river. It is bad, right? This is not where we want to be. So they have to figure out how to cross it, and it just kind of doesn't work out well for them, right? It goes badly.
Mm-hmm.
Because
yes, this is the river that Beorn was warning them about
yes.
Not drinking from, becoming drowsy, potentially having issues with.
Yeah, he's telling them how bad it was, bad enchantments and whatever. But so this is not where they want to go. So they're up here at this enchanted river thing. Right? I was looking at the map in the back of the book, trying to get my bearings when we're talking about this.
Yes.
Because originally they wanted to be further south, where there's a much more straight shot across. But we had to go up further north, and they're following this little like elf path thing, right? And so they get to this river, and there's no bridge, which is not good, right? And they're like, okay, well, we can't get in the river. So there is a boat, but it's of course on the other side.
Yes.
Because things just can't go well. That's not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they try to, like grappling hook it over. Okay, got a grappling hooked over. They come up with this plan. We'll just leave the ropes in the boat, and then you can pull it back, and then we'll pull you over. It's like a ferry type situation. They make a homemade ferry, right? That's what they do. And it's going okay until it isn't again, right? We have this continuing theme here. Like it seems to be fine, and then it's not, right? It's kind of this cycle that's just going to replay over and over.
Yeah, where everything seems okay. Yeah, you're right.
Like what seems fine. Oh, it's not fine.
Nope. 'Tis not.
Because, well, we have this problem of Bomber, right? They're he's upset because they won't let him go first. And they're like, dude, you're the fattest. You have to wait. And so that makes him mad. But then he falls in the river, right? just, because they got distracted by something else, right? There was like a deer that like sprang out, and a whole bunch of them like turned to try to like shoot at it, which like distracted everybody, right? There was like this like flash and this distraction, and then like a bomber falls in, and they got to get him out, and he is just like done, right?
Immediately. Yes.
Immediately, he's out. So he is like asleep, which is also not good because now they have to move him.
Hmm.
So they take it in turns of 4, I believe, and try to get him moving from place to place, right? And then that's going okay, right? We're getting him moved to the thing, blah blah blah. Then they, oh yeah, this is the part where they like they try to get their bearings, right? They're like, somebody needs to go up this tree and see if they can see anything. I wonder who that could be.
Yes. Yes. Yet again, like, yeah. It's like, well, who'd have thunk?
Yeah.
So
So
sorry.
Bilbo goes up, and he's looking around, and he does make it all the way to the top of the tree, where he is very distracted because there's like butterflies. And he's like, "Ooh, look, sun and a little breeze and some butterflies. How lovely!" And he kind of gets distracted by the butterflies because he's been a dank for forever. And this is exciting news. But he kind of looks around and he really can't see anything, right? But it is implied by the narration that like he could have if he looked just a bit harder for it, right? Like,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Where it's like, actually, as I have told you, they were not far off the edge of the forest. And if Bilbo had had the sense to see it, the tree that he had climbed, though it was tall in itself, was standing near the bottom of a wide valley, so that from its top the trees seemed to swell up all round like the edges of a great bowl, and he could not expect to see how far the forest lasted. I'm like, yes. Ah, rats.
Yeah. So again, close, but no cigar. No. Sorry. Uh,
Yes.
but now we're getting in tight spot because we're like running out of food, right? We're
Uh-huh.
running out of water. We're kind of like not really knowing. We're out of rations basically, right? So now they're starting to worry about, oh, starving or becoming dehydrated or whatever. Um, so they're in this tight spot and they see, uh, they're drawn off the path by a light, right? They see something. They send Bilbo, of course, to go
Yep.
to go check it out, right? Doesn't help that Bomber has woken up and was telling them about his dreams of food. That really distressed them. They're like, "Shut up! Don't want to hear about that. We don't.
That didn't go over well.
We don't have any food, and so we stop it." But they creep up and they find like an elven feast, right? Some whimsical elven feast in the middle of a wood. But then the elves like disappear, right? So it's kind of weird. This part's really weird, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
this is a very strange, like, weirdness. Like, oh, they're here. Oh no, now they're gone. And then they repeat this process a couple times.
It really is like
It's really strange.
it,
Like,
you almost kind of wonder, is this real, or is this like a delirium induced by being starved and hungry and lost and like, or are they actually chasing these things? But it because it is bizarre. It keeps happening like throughout the night, like over and over and over again.
yeah, this part's really weird. Like, it's like, what? Yeah, it is kind of vague, probably intentionally at this point, right? Of like, what in the world's going on? What's happening? And they're just like chasing this elven feast through the forest, right? Which is bad because now we're not on the path anymore. And we were told specifically by Gandalf and Beorn to not go off of the path ever for anything at all. So much so that when they sent Bilbo up to the top of the tree to do some scouting, they made sure it was a tree on the path.
Yes. But all that is now long long forgotten.
Food delirium has just sent them like running through the forest, like chasing this like elvish feast thing. And that has, as you can surmise, it doesn't go well. Right. Oh no. Oh no. Because this is where the chapter gets its name from, and they find apparently 700 million spiders.
Gigantor spiders.
Giants, gigantor spiders living in the wood that capture them all, right? While they're like in distress or not being able to find this thing, they are swooped upon by some spiders. Boom. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where he because he can't find them, and he sits down and he's like, well, I'll just search for them in the morning. And that's where he
lost them.
Yes.
Yeah, because they stopped making little fires because it was too creepy to see all the eyes stare at them. So there's like, okay, well,
turns out the eyes.
Yeah. We're following you.
Yes.
Right. But now we have some like very abrupt like character development here from Mr. Baggins.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
He like all of a sudden is like, I will save the day now. Right. Kind of comes out of nowhere. Right. He like slays the first spider. And now he's just like, all right, I'm a spider killer now. Let's go.
Yeah, he really comes to. This is where he names his dagger, right?
Yeah.
He's like, well, appropriately, I will call you Sting. And yeah, let's go do this. And it is quite abrupt. We're like, well, just a few minutes ago, you were complaining about climbing a tree. Like, can we remember that? And now you're here. But I guess, he's got stuff to do.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was pondering this while I was reading. Like, why? Like, and it's weird to me that he's like, I mean, I guess his little arc is like kind of been growing because he tried to sort of talk his way out of the situation with the trolls, right? He did talk his way out of the golem situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now talking not really an option with a spider. So I guess we're gonna stab it, right? And it's really
sure, yeah, and it really is a panic moment for him because he wakes up while it's spinning its web around him, right? Like that's when he wakes up, and it's all pure instinct at that point. And then the other aspect is he's kind of while he's in an unfamiliar situation, he's on a turf that he recognizes because it talks. This is where the chapter starts talking about how hobbits are again really good at being quiet and stealthy, especially in the wood. And he had spent a lot of time in wood, and so now it's like, okay, he's kind of on a familiar plane and in all not really in his element, but he's not so far as removed of being in a damp, dark, goblin cave or or face to face with somebody trying to eat him. I mean, not yet, or not for the moment. So I think it's a little bit more too of like, okay, I know how to be stealthy in the wood, and I need to look for my friends.
Yeah, right. And I think also like, I don't know what it is about. I don't know. Maybe it's because like at least perhaps a spider is like slightly more familiar than a cave troll or a goblin, right?
Sure,
because I'm assuming like he's seen other spiders, not like giant man-eating ones, but like
But at the same time,
this is also like, this is something I could take on, right? That's weird. Like he's decided, yes, spiders, my nemesis.
Right. But then it says as he drew nearer, he saw that it was made by spider webs, one behind and over entangled with another. Suddenly he saw too that there were spiders spiders huge and horrible sitting in the branches above him, and ring or no ring, he trembled with fear.
Yeah.
like this is you may be fine with a spider. Okay, you may be generally okay with one giant spider, but like what a horrific scene to walk upon and see moving, and it gives me the creeps just reading and thinking about it.
Especially if you are a hobbit, right? And not very large. So that is also but he just kind of goes all like
Rambo here.
Yeah, it's like Die Hard, right? All of a sudden, like Rambo First Blood, right? He's just like, all right, I'm now gonna slay every spider.
Yes.
He does. He starts like going after him, right? He's kind of he does the like, okay, he is playing to his strengths, right? He's like, I'm gonna distract him and I'm gonna lure him this way, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna throw rocks, because if we know anything from the old Lord of the Rings video games, is that hobbits have very powerful rock throwing abilities.
We do. It's a +2.
That's known. Yeah, it's a known fact.
Yeah.
And he starts. Okay, so this is here's what the other thing I was. He attacks them. He saw the moment had come and he must do something. He was he found the other guys and he was gonna like cut them loose and try to free them. Right.
Yeah.
He was throwing rocks and he decides, I'm gonna lead some of them away.
Yes.
And distract them. Right. This is his plan. So he has his ring on, so he's invisible, and he throws rocks at them, and he starts singing and calling them names. And you do this, and then they sing the song, and it said, quite apart from the stones, no spider has ever liked being called attercop, and tomnoddy, of course, is insulting to anybody. And I read that and was like, oh, is it now?
Because right before he said that, it said not very good, perhaps, but then you must remember that he had to make it up for himself on the spur of a very awkward moment.
That's true.
But yes, and then it's like, oh, these are how odd that these are. That particularly to a spider, these are very insulting. Like I love that. Like it's so wonderful.
It's so confusing that upon a quick Google, first of all, if you Google attercop, the first results are from The Hobbit, right? Because I think this is the only time this word has ever been used in the modern lexicon. It is taken from the Old English dialect word that means spider, right? Coming from the root poison head.
Poison head, yes.
Yeah. So it is a English dialect word that comes from the Old English, and it means spider.
Yes.
Okay. Of course, Tolkien would throw that in there, right? Just like, ha ha ha. Take that, sucker. I'm going to flex on you here with my Old English vocabulary.
Okay. Yeah. And then to add that not only is it Old English, probably that how few people would actually recognize this, but then we're layering something onto this and saying, okay, this Old English word that very few people know about, yes, this is insulting to spiders. And you're like,
yeah,
okay, I now know what to yell at the ones I see scurrying about my kitchen.
Yeah, right, of course. But then tomnoddy. Again, I had to look that one up too, because what does that mean?
Yeah.
It basically translates to dunce, right?
Dunce.
Right, is what that says. And then this so it's like, it means like foolish or stupid, right? So he's basically calling him a dummy. Boom.
Now there you go.
That's kind of what it means. So another old word, right? There you go, meaning foolish or stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So of course nobody likes to be called foolish or stupid, right? Especially not spiders,
Right.
apparently, right?
Obviously. That's all.
But that's one of those things where you're reading it, you're like, oh, you're like, Tolkien, what is just
What is
slipping that in there on us,
Yeah.
like throwing us some weird slang. And maybe tomnoddy was much more well known in 1937, but
I don't
probably
know.
not attercop, right?
Yes.
Probably not attercop. That probably
No.
wasn't. Maybe
No,
tomnoddy. I don't know. Maybe they were just people just calling each other that left and right, being all rude.
It's all the rage. All the rage.
Yeah, all the rage.
He does this, and he loops back around to make his way back towards the spider webby nest there. And this is where he thinks he's got them all out, and he comes up and he finds the mean old fat one and slow one there, fat bodied spider. And he had thought of starting the feast while the others were away, but Mr. Baggins was in a hurry.
Yeah, it's like what?
He was in a hurry, and he's boom, there you go, rolled off the branch dead. and then
yeah, he was.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. You're
I was just going to say, and then he doesn't know what to do quite to make this work. So he what's he do? Oh, he's trying to figure out how he's going to now get the dwarves down, because if he cuts them, right, they're going to fall and probably hurt themselves quite a bit.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, I don't know how. He's like, okay, I can get him out. I don't know how to do that. So he settles on just like cutting them out of the cocoon, right? And then they can sort of start to cut each other out, right? Which, I mean, that's a fair plan. It's a pretty good plan. That way you can go faster. You can go faster that way. So that kind of works. They do that. They get out. They start cutting each other down. And they start running, and eventually the spiders just stop chasing them.
Yes.
Like, nah, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
They're running, and Bilbo's kind of like running back and forth, trying to play offense and defense with them. But yeah, he's basically just like run, and they do just stop.
Oh, but he did have to reveal his secret to his compatriots.
Oh yes,
right. He had to tell them about his ring, right?
Yeah.
So much as he knew. He said, "I'm gonna have to disappear, but you keep running." And
I love that. Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? And so they do, and they can hear him shouting, right? Lazy lob, whatever that means. And which also means spider, I believe, in Old English, right?
Shelob.
Which is where Shelob's name comes from. Again, Tolkien being Tolkien-y.
Yeah, and this is where they start asking him a bunch of questions too, right? About like they're trying to figure this out. They're trying to get it they're trying to understand, and gradually they go from asking questions about his adventure and the ring to like, what do we do next? And like, what are the next steps? Right.
Yeah. And Ballin, though, is vindicated. He's like, I knew you couldn't have snuck past me. Normally, I got the best look at.
Yeah. So he's feeling much better about himself. Yes, for sure.
Right. So they kind of start asking these questions. They start thinking about what to do next. And then we're like, oh, good old Bilbo. And then all of a sudden, Dwalin looks up and goes, hey, where's Thorin anyway?
Yeah.
And then they finally take count and like, oh, that's not enough dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Turns out all the way back when they were running and chasing elves through the forest, Thorin like just fell asleep, right? Bilbo had done that, right? Bomber had done that. It was Thorin's turn, and then nobody saw him do that apparently.
No.
And so, yeah, Thorin is been captured by some elves. Oh no, right?
Yes. And this is now we're transported out to yet a whole nother thing, right? And
Yeah,
because
right.
it's yeah, because we get a brief diatribe about high elves and wood elves and kind of
this is important. This is important Cimmerillion stuff right here, right?
Yes.
This is a good.
Yeah, because now it starts coming of like the light elves, the deep elves, the sea elves, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, what? I was just being chased by spiders. Give me a minute here.
Right. So your brief rundown is when the elves were awoken by the god, they were already in Middle Earth, right? And they were awoken in the time before the trees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very important because at the beginning of Tolkien's Legendarium, there is no sun and moon yet. The world is been lit by trees. Yes, it sounds weird, but they're trees.
Yes.
Originally, it was lamps. Morgoth destroyed the lamps, and then there's trees, and then he destroyed those too. Spoiler. But anyway, that's why elves love stars so much, because they awoke, and that's all there was, right? And so the elves journeyed west. They crossed the sea into Valinor, but not all of them went. And the ones that stayed became these wood elves, right? They've never left. They're kind of like, they're not as like fancy and refined as the other elves, right? As like Elrond and them, because they have never actually left Middle Earth, right? And that's kind of this is how Tolkien explained how there's differences in the elf language, right? There's two different dialects of Elvish, and it's because one group stayed and one group left and went to Valinor. And so the language has some like grammatical and syntax differences because of this. It's very insane when you think about it like that. But yeah, that's so yeah. Anyway, captured, right? And this is where you found out that it actually was elves. Okay, they were not hallucinating elves in the forest. Because they were like, why did you attack my people? And he's like, what are you talking about? I didn't attack anybody.
Yeah.
And basically, he's like, look at me. Who am I going to attack? No one. What are you talking about? Come
on. Yeah. With this, we find out Thorin is in a dungeon, in a cave dwelling, basically, at the edge of the forest, being interrogated by the Elven King.
Yeah. So you could say a second instance of out of the frying pan into the fire. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, escaping goblins to be caught by wolves, of course. That's what I meant to say.
Yes, obviously. I mean,
everyone does.
Yes. 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 I mean, it only gets testy whenever the Elven King's like, yeah, but why were you in my wood? And Thorin got angry because he doesn't want to tell him that he's on his quest for gold, right? And what he's doing.
Yeah, you don't want to didn't want to bring that part up, right? He gets a little is this the part where they kind of they start kind of they kind of hint at the dislike between elves and dwarves here a little bit, right? Is that here or is that in the next little bit here? I can't. Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think. Well, hold on. I'm trying to think if it is here, but I think it just talks about kind of the differences between them.
Yeah.
Oh no, it does talk about the old quarrel. It does talk about the old quarrel. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get a little.
Oh, because in ancient days they had wars with some of the dwarves whom they had accused of stealing their treasure. And it is only fair to say that the dwarves gave a different account, right?
Very different, yes.
Very different.
But all the same, Thorin is very upset because his group of dwarves, right, Durin's folk, not involved in this little kerfuffle at all.
At all.
So
Yes.
this happened very far away, right? Norgorod or whatever is very far away from the Lonely Mountain where the Durin's folk was living. So Thorin's like, it's not even my group of dwarves. So what are you so grumpy about, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the rundown here. Deep lore lesson. Last one for today. A long time ago in the First Age, right? The king, one of the kings of the elves, had the dwarves make him a necklace, right? Like a real nice little, like a necklace. And it, oh, excuse me. It later became attached to the one of the Silmarils, right? So Finrod, obviously, because all elves in the First Age, their names start with F for some reason. Finrod had them make this necklace, right? He was friends with the dwarves and they made it for him, right? And he treasured it and he loved the dwarves, right? He lived under a mountain. He built his fortress under a mountain. He was like, took advice from the dwarves and whatever. And so they made him this necklace, right? Well, the mountain gets invaded by a dragon, as mountains do, apparently. And later on, somebody takes the necklace out, okay? And then it ends up in Doriath with King Thingol. And he has one of these Silmarils, which is like the power thing in the First Age, right? That like everybody is lusting over, like way worse than the ring, right? It's terrible. So he has it, and he has it set into this necklace. It's called the Naglomir, because of course it is Tolkien. Why would you not call it that?
Sounds good.
Does sound good, right? So then, right now the dwarves are like, "Yo, Thingol, we didn't make that necklace for you, so it's ours actually now, because the Silmaril corrupts everyone, and the dwarves who like shiny things were corrupted very easily and wanted the shiny thing. And then there was a whole kerfuffle about owning this necklace, basically. And that's why the elves and dwarves were testy with each other. It's because they had a big fight over a big shiny necklace. Boom.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look at it.
That's the very short version, but that's why they're grumpy with each other. Shiny magical necklaces make people angry at each other, right?
Well, we get that same
that
pattern
theme will be revisited
yes,
here.
Theme, yes, it will be revisited very shortly. For sure.
He knows. That's why yeah, there you go. Anyway, Dungeons of the Elves, right? Because Bilbo and the rest of them also get captured by elves. Well, when I say Bilbo, just kidding.
Just haha. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Starts doing his sneaky thing, right?
Yeah. This next chapter 9, Barrels Out of Bond, is, this is yet another kind of weird vamping chapter for sure. Just personally, because this one we sit, right? We sit for a little bit, and then there's a lot of action right at the very end.
So now we are trapped in the halls of the Wood Elf King, right? And this is kind of weird that Bilbo is just sort of like existing invisibly for what appears to be a very large amount of time.
Yes, this is a very weird chapter because like not a whole lot happens, and this is purely a character development or like deepening or strengthening of self-resolve for Bilbo, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it, right?
Yeah,
because it's just like him existing, kind of problem solving and like there's a whole lot of time spent thinking about like, okay, how do we get out of this one? And so he's just sort of like exploring the whole place before he does it. This is very much how like you play a video game, right? Like he's not really doing anything. He's just like going around and like checking stuff out.
Check this door.
Right? Like this is how you play Skyrim, right? You're like, oh, what's behind this door? Okay, cool. All right, okay. What's over here? Okay, cool. All right. Just sort of like getting the lay of the land and like coming up with stuff, but like not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it made me think about. Like he's playing a video game right now. He's just sort of wandering around, getting some snacks every once in a while, stealing some food, right?
That he felt bad about. Like he felt bad about having to do that, needing to do that, but also he didn't want to like leave because he was really, really worried about being able to get back in through the doors.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah. Like
he didn't know, but he did but he would leave every now and then. He'd follow like the hunting parties and stuff every now and then and guess like, I don't know, he just did it, I guess, because he was bored or trying to see where they would go, or because for a while, I guess,
I think
he was trying to figure out like where they were, and then he was like, "I'm kind of worried about getting lost. I'm going to go back."
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it feels like, right? He like goes out to see like, is this a viable way out? Not really, right? Like, so yeah, I feel like it's just him kind of exploring the grounds and trying to figure out how are we going to get out of this, right? And eventually he does go in and start to also all of the dwarves are together except for Thorin. Like they don't know where Thorin is still, which is also kind of weird. And I mean, probably pretty bad for the dwarves, right? Like they don't know where Thorin is. So even though Bilbo kind of like shows up to talk to some of the other dwarves, like they still don't know that Thorin is here. He's like out somewhere else. And eventually, like again, it feels like a very long time. They find him, right? And he's like very surprised. He's like, "Holy cow, Bilbo here! Get as usual."
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think a couple times within this chapter, the phrase like after a week or two, like you get the sense that this is going on for a very long time.
Yeah, they're stopped and detained for a long time, which is crazy, right? Like it's really weird. But then Bilbo comes up with, quite possibly, the strangest plan of all plans, right? Like, and it's a kind of like just sort of a happenstance thing, right? Like in all of his exploring, he found this like trapdoor thing, right? And sort of deduced what it was for and was like, all right, that's how we're getting out, right? And he decides that they're going to stuff themselves in wine barrels and be jettisoned out of the floor, right?
Yep.
And so before we go on, we need to talk about what a horrible system this is. This is the least efficient method I've ever heard of in my entire life, right? I don't know if this has like a basis in historical accuracy or if Tolkien was just like, hey, this would be funny. But like, here's the plan, listeners. Okay. So the elves, right? They take all of their wine barrels or whatever, any barrels, because all the stuff comes in barrels, I guess, and they just fling it into the river when they're done with it. And camped downstream, I guess, permanently is a place where people just fish barrels out of the river, right? There's no telling when it's going to happen because there's no like indication that there's barrels coming. So you just have to sit by a river forever and just wait for barrels to come. And they might not even come, right? They could get stuck like Bilbo's barrel. I mean, like, jump ahead a little bit. Their barrels almost got stuck on like a sandbar thing, right? So like this is a terrible system.
It seems very, very inefficient, right?
But you would think the elves could do better than just to wing stuff into the river and hope somebody finds it later. Like this is pretty terrible, wood elves. I gotta say, this is not.
But I guess then I was like, well, if they are just like if there is just that much flow of goods and commerce between them and the lake town, I guess one could surmise that maybe like it makes it worth it because then they're not having to physically transport them down. But then
That's true.
What a weird job to just be camped out on a riverbank being like, hey, yo, there's barrels there.
Catcher. Yeah. And so like again, I guess if this is a big trade, you could guess like this is happening every couple days.
Yeah.
Right. But you're waiting around every couple days for just like a shipment of barrels. So maybe they're doing maybe these people at this outpost have like other things to do. I would hope so. Right. We don't really know because they don't like Bilbo doesn't stick around and Bilbo doesn't know. And, maybe Tolkien knows, but maybe it's in one of those letters he wrote. I don't know. But yeah, this just seems like I just wanted to state that I feel this is a supremely inefficient method of trade. Right. I feel like
fair. Your complaint is noted.
Noted. All right.
We'll take it up.
Okay. Good deal. All right. Anyway, back to the plan.
Yeah. So after he comes up with this, he has this idea, right? But then he like even in a more fortuitous event, like the timing of this is also very just like go.
Yeah, right. It's a little Deus Ex Machina, right? They're like, "What? I just came up with this plan to escape. Just so happens there's a party tonight."
Right.
But anyway, I did like the part where Bilbo just like shows like he kind of plans this whole thing out and he doesn't really bother telling anybody else. It doesn't really feel like because he shows up and he's like, "Come on, let's go. Follow me."
Yep.
And they're just like, "Where?" And he's like, "Yes. This way." And I like again, like I think these two chapters sort of they are a big Bilbo kind of like arc of like self-discovery, and there's a lot of growth for Bilbo personally in these chapters because they get down there and the dwarves are like, "I'm not going in these barrels," and he just looks at him and goes, "Fine, you can go sit in your cell and wait for another opportunity. Good luck."
Great.
I'm going. Like,
very well done, right? It's very like, oh, okay.
And I feel like earlier Bilbo would not have said that, right? Like he's already been through some real weird stuff, and he's like, "I don't want to be in this stinking thing anymore. Let's go." If you got a better plan, come up with it, or you can go stay here. I think that sort of interaction really kind of showcases just how much Bilbo has grown kind of already.
Yeah.
Kind of like his character development as a bit more confident about his ability to be in the outside world, right? Maybe it was the slaying of the spiders that has bolstered this newfound confidence.
Right. I think a little bit is also he's a bit tired of being where he is, and I think just for him personally, he's also in the mindset of like, we're like this is what's happening. Like, I'm not staying here anymore. Like, and we need to do this, and we just need to get out of here.
Yeah, because it mentions here and then a little earlier, kind of the last chapter too. It alluded to like he doesn't like this like being trapped underground thing.
Yeah,
right. He's not really a fan. And the text even kind of goes out of the way to say like, now you may think that's a weird thing for a hobbit to say because they like live underground, but like it's a house with like stuff and snacks and a fireplace and windows and comfortable things. And he's trapped in this like dingy cave, hiding out, in these like random alcoves all day long, trying to not be bumped into by I think he's like on edge. He's like real tense. He sees a way out and he's like, "Let's go."
He really is.
But it is an interesting distinction that Bilbo is a hobbit who lives in a hole in the ground. That's what it says. But he does not really like being underground that much, right? Possibly because all of his experiences underground in this book have been horrible. And so he's just like super over it, right? Like
Yeah, so far, all of the times he has been underground, nothing like his hobbit hole, and he is really not happy
Yeah.
at all.
Yes. And the forest like felt
Mhm.
oppressive as if you were underground. It makes that sort of connection here. So we've learned that Bilbo does not really like being underground, which is a problem because his end goal is under a mountain. So we'll see if that plays out for him. Right. We'll see if it addresses that, in more detail later.
Maybe, mayhaps.
Mayhaps. But anyway, he convinces them after the guard sneak some like super wine, right? They're like, oh, they're like, the guards are wasted. They fall asleep and this is the chance. They're away, right? I do like this other part where Bilbo has this big elaborate plan and he's like got it all planned out and they've gotten different barrels over on the trap door and they've got all the dwarves in there and he's packed them in carefully and he's even put some like straw and other stuff so they don't bump their heads and he gets the last one sealed and he looks at them and he goes, oh wait, where's my barrels?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's wonderful.
I feel like this is me, right? This is how I do.
Yeah, you get like, this is amazing, going great, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, there is also like one very obvious thing that's not here.
Yeah, my
me.
thing.
Oh, it's for me. Oh, I was trying to find exactly with where like, because in the book there's a very it presents that where it's like, now, like, you may have already realized Bilbo's mistake or something. Like, I was trying to find that language in the book because it is
yeah, it's like
oh yes, most likely you saw it coming. It says it was at just this moment that Bilbo
Yes, there
suddenly
you go.
discovered the weak point in his plan. Most likely you saw it some time ago and have been laughing at him, but I don't suppose you would have done half as well yourselves in his place. Of course, he was not in a barrel himself, nor was
Yes.
there anyone to
He's
pack
just
him
like-
in one. It's great. It's great. I'm just like, yes. I love that.
Yeah, it's hilarious, right? And I just feel like that's a very relatable moment, right? Because I think we've all done that, like in some capacity, right? You like are getting, like serving dinner or something, and you bring like everybody's drink, and then you sit down, and you go, "Oh wait, there's something missing here." And so Bilbo just decides, well, they're closing the gate. There's nothing for it. I hope I can grab one of these suckers, and he just leaps into the river, which also is a big moment of growth, right? Because this is not thought through, right? We're sort of just hoping things go okay. But it also speaks to how much he doesn't want to be here anymore, and he doesn't want he's also worried about the dwarves, right? This whole time, like he's hanging onto a barrel, right? He's like almost drowning, and he is also just like worried about them, which is also a very interesting character trait here, right? You get a lot of that, like, oh, I was hoping that they were quite all right, hope that there wasn't too much water in their barrels, that kind of thing. So that's also kind of just like his personality coming through, where he's still playing that consummate host that he was in the beginning, right? Like, even though there's all these weird dwarves in his house, he doesn't want them there. He wants to make sure they have enough food and to drink and stuff. So now, even though in like a weird twist, he's like, even though he's floating down some raging river, like holding on to a barrel, he's still worried about the other people and hoping that they're okay, even though he is in a horribly precarious situation.
Yeah, as he's tumbling along, he's saying, I do hope I put the lids on tight. And Bilbo wondered what the dwarves were feeling and whether a lot of water was getting to their tubs. Meanwhile, he's hanging on to the exterior of a tub, being banged around and half drowning himself and being very cold as well. And you're right, that consummate host, somebody who's always worried about the well-being of others in spite of themselves.
Yeah, right. Now he sort of makes up for it whenever they do like they get down there, they finally they are collected by the aforementioned barrel collector people, right?
Oh,
Um, but like he like while all the dwarves had to be stuck still in their barrels as things moves on, he is now free to like sneak away and steal more snacks, right? This is his thing. Like he's kind of the problem is he's wet and his sneaking is impaired by his wetness because he's leaving like wet footprints on things when he's walking around. And so he's having to try to get by a fire, but he can't be too close because people will see him. And like, there's a very nerve-wracking part here. He's like very on edge still. He tries to find a place to sleep, even though it's like freezing because he's soaked, because he's been, in the water for a very long amount of time. So it's like a very weird juxtaposition because like the people down here are like having a good time and they're cooking and stuff, and he has to like be miserable and like sneak off into the woods and do whatever. And although the dwarves have it worse because they're stuck in the barrel overnight.
Yes, and he's kind of getting sick too, right? That's the other thing of he's he's dripping, but because he was out in the night all cold, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's cold. Yeah. This is the thing that your grandparents warned you about. Out wet in the cold. Bilbo's caught himself a sniffle. And so that makes sneaking even harder because he even like woke himself up by sneezing. Right? Like so that's kind of where we are. And the chapter even ends on that little bit of tension, right? Because, they had escaped the dungeons of the king and were through the wood, but whether alive or dead still remains to be seen. Because the dwarves are still in the barrel, so he doesn't actually know if they all made it, right? Which is kind of a crazy thing. So he has that to worry about also.
Yes, we have to open them to see. But yeah, it's again, this chapter is very much just, from my opinion, it's purely about character development for Bilbo, and obviously it does other things as well. It exposes us, it introduces us to some characters who will come into play later.
True.
The rivalries or the histories between certain people groups, which comes up to play later, and but really, from my perspective, it's just about like this confidence, this newfound confidence, this leadership, this like this it just has to be done kind of thing that Bilbo is learning about himself along the way.
Yeah, right. Like, and I feel like this is a little bit, even though Tolkien, of course, never has self-insert moments, right? Never.
No.
Ever. This is like a very like British attitude to have about things, right? Like well, this really sucks. All right, carry on. Like, this, this like very like plucky,
stiff upper lip, right? Kind of thing.
Upper lip. There you go. That's a very good way to put about it, right? You think about those like keep calm and carry on signs, right? Like the world is going crazy, the bombs are falling. Please be calm. Like it's a very like I feel like sometimes in this moment, like Bilbo is James May, right? That's kind of what it feels like.
Not too far off.
No, not really.
Yeah, just kind of plucking along.
Yeah, just like, well, we're just gonna get on with it, right? Can't be bothered. This is terrible, but we have to get on because we're not going to stop here. We don't want to sit on the side of this bank. We don't want to be stuck in this cave. We don't want to be eaten by spiders. We don't want to be, whatever. Like, well, just go for it. So, like, this is very like, I think it's very like Tolkien, just sort of attitude, right? Just like, yep, I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, here we go. We come to the end of chapter 9.
And on to a warm welcome.
Indeed.
Indeed. Chapter 10.
Yes. So there you go. These ones are short too, so that'll be nice. I feel like the last two they're like a bit too long, right? Because because like you said, it is like a lot of development and a lot of like internal things, but they're also just like kind of long chapters.
Like they do go on a bit for sure.
They do go on a bit. So there you go. Just want to say that too. Like it's a little bit draggy at some points, but it's all good. We have had some growth, so we will see how the growth plays out in the future. Like, what will this newfound Bilbo be able to accomplish? Right? Will he be able to rise above and keep his stiff upper lip?
Indeed, we will.
Dun da da.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. Until next time.
Until next time.
All right. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.